Hi, in this video I want to talk about logical conclusions, things relating to reality and another reality video, I suppose. Maybe psychology. A lot of these things are subconsciously psychology, you just don't realize it. Um, but when it comes to drive, motivation, these things that can confuse us into viewing a purpose. So let me just read my notes real quick, just to give you a general idea, a synopsis, a basic summarization of the idea. Beings like humans, any kind of motivational mechanism, are driven to do things. Things don't have to have any ultimate reason other than explaining it will objectively happen logically. So, like the motivation, I think that there's some kind of purpose. There's a purpose to existing, or there's a purpose to have things happen a certain way. I mean, it goes back to the whole deterministic mechanism. Things are going to happen a certain way, and there's no ultimate reason behind it. There's no ultimate explanation. There's no ultimate this bit of explanation goes to this specific thing. I mean, that's obviously describing a reality, but the perception that you may have for this or that, and an ultimate purpose guided by these individual things happening, is not there other than the things logically happening. So these things are just happening. They don't need to have a reason, because the reason is they just are happening. They don't have to have an ultimate reason, a drive, a mechanism that we apply to these things, other than a driving force driving that ultimate thing happening, that thing ultimately happening. It doesn't matter. Your motivation is just another key mechanism, another catalyst in that ultimate cause-effect reaction chain that's leading to a thing, an ultimate end, or an ultimate cause of chain things happening. And that's really the only thing that's really the only thing that's happening here. Here. So it's I mean, really, it doesn't matter what we think. Like I mentioned before. Um, this is gonna be a short video. It doesn't matter what we think. Things are happening a certain way, and your thought is just another thing, part of that process. So beings are driven to do things. Things don't have to have an ultimate reason other than explaining. Yes, okay. You can perceive, you can understand self-fulfilling prophecy. Reading tarot cards. Oh, okay. I read a tarot card, and I think something's going to happen. Things are going to happen a certain way. They tell you it's going to happen a certain way, and based on them telling you that thing, and your misrepresentation of that knowledge, and the lying or the deception in that knowledge, and maybe manipulation, makes you think that, oh well, it was obviously being foretold. And by the time I'm this age, my fortune teller is going to know I'm going to forget. Otherwise, I'm going to be too late. And at that point, I'm not going to come back and sue that person because I'll be long dead. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. Once you're, you'll all be dead. Or whatever. Once you're a certain age, a fortune telling you're saying you're going to die at a certain age. That fortune teller is 80 years old, telling your future. Yeah, they're going to be dead before the liability lawsuits start coming in. And start, yeah, you'll be dead by the time the youngin gets their fortune told, or the self-fulfilling prophecy in that. It doesn't matter the motivation, whatever motivation you have, self-fulfilling prophecy, expectation, it's all part of the process of moving forward. Things are going to happen a certain way, and sometimes the way you were thinking, your perception is going to be aligned with what happens, but obviously not the exact way, but generally speaking, we can make those associations, sort of like word associations, our mind and reality. Oh, it happened exactly the way I was thinking. No, it didn't. It happened close enough, sort of like words and mutual understandings of words. It happens mutually, and you can generally understand what another person's saying. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. They say, oh, I'm only 5% agnostic. And these are things I've actually heard. I mean, that's why they're coming to me so fast, these examples. 5%, agnostic. You can say I'm 5. We generally say, okay, he's just an atheist. We generally understand, okay, there's this much doubtability in the fact that there may be something out there. We can generally understand that representation based on those characteristics and those ideas and those representing characteristics and those factors. So we can generally understand what those mean. So they mean something, and we can generally understand. That's where that basic understanding, that comparison of psychological understanding and association and words and stuff like that. We can vaguely understand, sort of like the vague explained by astrology and tarot card reading. I mean, manipulation of motivation and expectations. It didn't happen exactly the way you perceived it. Sort of like what you said wasn't exactly the way you perceived it, but we generally understand. and you generally understand to be the truth exactly the way you perceived it. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's close enough. It's a good, at least comparable example. Compare how things are very vague, but they're very true, but they're very vague. And there's obviously a disconnection, but the disconnection is only because it's not, they're parallel. They're existing. It's like an audio track over a video track. They exist in the same thing. It's just they're disconnected. The words, the sounds, the senses, they all exist, but there's a slight disconnection. They're existing in the same thing, but there's a disconnection between them. You separate the tracks and they're the exact same thing, but they're disconnected. But they still exist in the same recording, kind of thing. So that's basically the idea. I mean, it's not really, that's not a difficult idea to explain. It's a very easy idea to understand. There's not much going on here. So, I don't know what else to say. Let's see. Let's move my hair on my face. But yeah, beings are driven to do things. So motivation, that doesn't matter. That's just another mechanism pushing you forward, another catalyst, like I mentioned before. Yeah, I mean, that's the basic idea. It's an ultimate reason. Beings are driven to do things. Things don't have to have any ultimate reason other than explaining or proving or existing and manifesting. It'll objectively happen logically based on ideas such as cause and effect. Something's going to happen, and it may happen. Things may, based on the things that you perceived before, didn't happen the way you perceived them, but the thing that you happen to be thinking now happens based on the things that you had no disconnection between. That's the disconnection between psychology and your expectation. Before you thought something was going to happen, but it didn't happen. But based on that thing that didn't happen, based on what you thought was going to happen, is now another expectation that's leading to something that you want, that you think is going to happen, and it actually happens. But it didn't happen because you thought it was going to happen. But you were just a catalyst in that measure, sort of like determinism. You were another important part. You were needed. Yet motivational mechanism was needed, but it was going to happen anyway. That motivational mechanism was needed. Otherwise, the thing happening the way it was going to happen wasn't going to exist the way it was going to happen. But it doesn't happen exactly the same way that you're perceiving. It's just it would need you to happen that way for it because it needed that. It was a necessary component for the thing happening the way it did happen. So it needed you to happen the way it happened, but your perception was just another disconnection between what was going to happen and what actually happened. So I mean that's another way of looking at it. So I mean there's not much else to mention, but yeah. So yeah, logical understanding of reality. Things are going to happen. Things are logical fundamentally, except for psychology, and that's an explanation of psychology. Things are objective, but not everything's logical. Logical ideas come from the mind. Logic comes from the mind. Objectivity happens in the world. Logic is understanding that subjective and objective are different things, but subjective exists inside the objective world based on a psychology. And the psychology of subjectivity happens in the logical mind, and that's where a lot of these dissonance and changes and contradictions and dissonances of psychological understanding and motivation and blah happen. So that's the basic function. That's the basic idea. So these things are ultimately superficial, sort of like changes and differences in the way you look, and it's all superficial. They exist. There's a difference. Obviously, we're not saying there isn't, but the fundamental thing that matters, obviously, a tall person, this person soaks in more vitamin D based on their skin color, their hair color, their person's taller, they can reach higher. We're not saying those things don't ultimately objectively exist. They do. We're just saying they don't mean anything, and that's where the difference between objectivity. Okay, it exists, but does it mean anything at that point? It goes from subjectivity to objectivity to value. does it mean anything? It doesn't mean anything. The meaning that means anything is your ability to feel, to be sentient, and everything else is superficial to that fundamental function. We're not saying it doesn't affect it, but it's completely disconnected, other than from a psychological perception of it. You may be sad that you're short, um, but ultimately there's a disconnection, and those things are superficial. Looking at it from outside looking in. Obviously, from the inside looking out, it can affect you. It's objectively different. It can psychologically affect you, but logically, it doesn't have any value. And that's another distinction to be made. So regardless, if I have anything else to mention on that subjectivity, or these subjects of value and so on and so forth, there's always another video to be made. So thank you, and until next time, bye.